I come from the Quality Innovation Performance section of AgPal. We service a diverse range of health, community and human service organisations across the country. We undertake the delivery of accreditation, certification, accreditation and certification. We are a pretty substantial organisation and we've been doing it for a pretty long time. We're one of the biggest organisations in the country, so we're pretty proud of that. We're also a not-for-profit organisation and we ourselves are accredited by ISQA. So we know what the accreditation process is like from the other side of it as well. So we know how stressful it can be. So the community team has Rainbow Tick client liaison officers, which is every organisation will be allocated a client liaison officer, and the community team has we have 4 client liaison officers at the moment, and they service the Rainbow Tick clients across the country. All right, so this is kind of crash course in the accreditation process, and this is specific to QIP. So again, if you're familiar with QIP, these stages will sound a bit familiar to you. So we start with registration, then self-assessment, application through to the assessment, then the decision, and then monitoring. And then, as you can see, it's a cycle, so we just keep going round and round. So just a few more points on the actual process. So the registration process is where we establish the profile of your organisation and we figure out what you actually want to get accredited. Some organisations do whole of organisation, some do part of organisation, and this is where we have the chat with you to say, what do you actually want accredited? And then we move on to the self-assessment through the online system Accreditation Pro, which is QIP's own product. And so everything is electronic with what we do. So the self-assessment is online, submission of your self-assessment is online. And then following that, we allocate an assessment team, depending on the number of sites and staff and clients you have. That determines the length that we're on site for. I'll just add in that due to COVID, we were doing a lot of assessments remotely, and they've been working quite well. Obviously, we would prefer to get on site, but if that's not an option, we do kind of have that flexibility. And then once the assessment is finished, we pass the report onto a decision maker, and then the monitoring stage is just the continuous quality improvement to make sure, yes, we've met the standards, but what can we keep doing better and build on that. So with registration, if you are a current client of QIP, you should know who your client liaison officer is. If you haven't yet, let them know that you are interested in Rainbow Tick. Definitely send them through an email and they can kind of get the ball rolling and get the quoting and the scoping processes started. If you are not a QIP client and you want to start having that conversation, my email will be at the end of this presentation, and I'm very happy for you to contact me and we can start having that conversation. So what that would involve is getting a scope document completed, and that'll just say, it'll have the information about all of your sites, how many staff you have, how many clients you have, and where exactly your sites are located and what services you deliver. So it's pretty much, we just need a full picture of who you are, and that helps us to work out what we need to quote you, and then also how long we'll need for the assessment. So once we do the scope, then we get the quote and then we get the agreement. And then as soon as the first invoice is paid, you are granted access to the online self-assessment. So the self-assessment, like I said before, is all online. So we have the QIP's own tool, Accreditation Pro, and that kind of guides you through the whole self-assessment process. Accred Pro has some really good features where you can have the document library, there are links to resources, you can make an action plan, and you can kind of allocate tasks to certain members of your organisation. And the whole time, pretty much once you sign up, you've got access to that client liaison officer whenever you need. So phone, email, video call, they're kind of here to help you through the whole way. So once you work through your assessment and you've uploaded all of your evidence, that's when you submit your self-assessment. So that's when you're happy that you've done all that you can, and then you press that shiny little green submit button. That it's always a good day when that happens. And then it comes through to us again, or fully paperless, and then either after this point or while you're doing your self-assessment, this is when you'll have a pre-assessment discussion with your assessment team leader. And that's when you talk about timetables and logistics, what sites, because we don't visit all of your sites, so we'll just sample some. And this is where we'll kind of decide where we're going. And you'll get to meet, whether it's over a video call or a phone call, your assessment team leader, and just kind of just have those little chats that it's just an opportunity to ask questions, really. Especially with Rainbow Tick, pre-assessment discussion is a really, really important step. So once everything's all set in place, we need to actually check your work, pretty much. So what the assessment team will do is they will review all your documents, review your self-assessment, and then we go on site or remotely, and we kind of check, we go through standard by standard, indicator by indicator, to see if you've met all of the standards, pretty much. And then once the assessment is completed, the assessors will submit an electronic report. So that comes to either myself or your client liaison officer, and we kind of go through a quality check process. And once we're happy with the report, then the draft report will go out to you as the organisation, and this is called the natural justice period. Before we get to the decision, the natural justice period is 10 business days where you get the chance to review your report and make sure that there are no inconsistencies, there's nothing that we've said that we've missed. So you might have a piece of evidence, but we just didn't see it. So you can just kind of flag that at that stage. If you have any additional information that you want to provide in that 10 days as well to help the decision makers with their final decision, then you can submit further evidence during this time. So accreditation isn't awarded until you have met all of the standards, and it is perfectly okay not to meet all of the standards the first time round. We know Rainbow Tick is an absolute humongous job, and it's not uncommon for organisations to come out of it with some corrective actions. And a corrective action is if you've got a not met, and the report and the assessment team will kind of outline what you need to do to meet that particular not met. So what will happen is, if it's your first cycle of Rainbow Tick, you have a corrective action period of 150 days. And then for every subsequent Rainbow Tick cycle, you have 90 days. So in this time, you've got the opportunity to work on some missing documents, if you need to put some extra things in place, just pretty much filling in the gaps, just to make sure that we can go back and see that you filled those gaps pretty much. So if all of your required corrective actions have been implemented in that required timeframe, your organisation will be eligible for full accreditation. And at that stage, we give the report back to the decision maker. So we have internal decision makers, and they are the ones who award the accreditation, and they're separate from us. So they kind of don't work with us during the process. It's kind of like we do our thing and then we pass it off to them. So once, I probably should mention that some organisations are beyond amazing and meet all of the standards their first time around, which is awesome. So they will just will award accreditation, and then they don't have to worry about any of the corrective action period. And once an organisation is accredited, doesn't matter whether it's straight away or whether it's after a corrective action period, organisations' details get published on the QIP website, and we've got a list of all of the currently accredited, REMBTIC accredited organisations on there. And it's really, really cool to see how big that list is getting. Once you receive your accreditation, you get sent a promotional pack, and that will be, there's some wall decals and your shiny certificate in a frame, so you can kind of show it proudly. Because I think, yeah, it's a lot of work. So once you achieve it, it's definitely something you kind of want to show off. And we definitely support that. It's just kind of another sign to say, yes, we are inclusive. And yeah, just celebrates the work that you've done, really. So after you've achieved accreditation, the work does not stop there. Obviously, we want to make sure that we're always trying to be better. So continuous quality improvement is the last kind of stage before we start again. 6 months after you achieve accreditation, we ask for an improvement plan to be submitted to QIP. So this is things that may have come out of your report. So some of your assessment team may suggest some improvement opportunities, but these can also come internally from you and your organisation. The more, the better. It doesn't mean you have to implement them next week, but it's just good to have kind of something to strive for. So that's 6 months after your accreditation, and then after 18 months is when we have a mid-cycle assessment. So it's a much shorter visit. It's generally a couple of hours on site, and it'll just be the assessment team leader rather than the whole team. They come on site, they review your improvement plan and see what work you've done to implement that improvement plan. So it's pretty much just checking in just to see that you are tracking forward and being better, I guess. Essentially that's all it is. So once we do the mid-cycle assessment, we pretty much start the whole process again. Obviously, the next time round, you'll kind of go into it with a bit more of an idea of the whole overall process, and you'll have those policies and procedures and all those documents in place that which need to be kind of reviewed and updated. But yeah, the first one is definitely the hardest, but then they get easier. So I mentioned it before, but everyone gets access to a client liaison officer. And then we also have the QIP Accreditation Hub. So if you've worked with QIP before, you're probably familiar with the hub. It includes resources, templates, some training, and webinars that our organisation has worked on. So if anyone needs any further information or any questions, please feel free to email me at any stage. I will see if there's any questions after this. But yeah, if you just wanted to note down my email address, if you had any questions, again, contact your current client liaison officer if you already have one. Otherwise, I will be your go-to.